Honor to Allah, the causeless cause, and the rootless root, from which all things have grown, the only one worthy of praise, adoration, songs of thanksgiving. I next give honor to His holy and divine prophet, founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I give honors to the harbinger, the forerunner of the prophet, Brother Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I give honor to the Moorish Science Temple of America. I give honor to the Nation of Islam. I give honor to all my brothers and sisters who are now present to partake of this very historic event we have here. Personally speaking, I'm filled with love because these are the two organizations that had the most profound effect upon me as a man. Islam. In fact, the first time I ever heard the name Noble Drew Ali uttered, it came out of the mouth of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Islam. So we're taught that law governs all events. There are no happenings. The question is also asked, how many days are in the circle? And the answer is 7 days. So I stand here today as the MC of a very momentous occasion in that there's this joint venture between Allah's team, which is composed of researchers and members of the Nation of Islam, and Ali's men, which is composed of researchers and members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. So I feel most honored, and it's indeed a great pleasure to stand before you today to MC this exciting event. Islam? Assalamu alaikum. Praise Allah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we have here, the name of this event is The Sun Rises in the West. Defended our Asiatic/Black American Islam. Why does those things need defending? Well, we get a lot of criticism from the larger Islamic Ummah because of our particular expressions of Islam. Although the Ummah does not have one unified expression of Islam, even though in Islam there's universal brotherhood, underneath that there's an undertone of nationalistic and family customs and traditions that pervade Islam. So any man worth his weight does not want to be subservient to any other man or any other nation. Islam. So Allah saw fit to send ones to us to prepare an Islam for us, by us. And these two organizations represent the fulfillment of the prayers of our people who are crying and praying for a deliverer to come and deliver them from the particular circumstances that we live here in North America. Because our circumstances here are unique to us. Islam. And we also taught that customs does not alter the nature of truth. Truth is but one, just like Allah is but one. So having said that, these two brothers of mine, Brother Sharif Anael Bey and Brother Dr. Wesley Muhammad, because I remember Brother Khalid said we say brother first before we utter any title, Islam. They are going to offer some measures according to their portions of understanding in defense of our particular expressions of Islam here in America. And I know everyone has been sitting, and we appreciate you being so patient as we began to trickle in so that we can come together on this oneness, so that you can give these brothers your full energy and attention so that they can share with you what they have to bring. So the first brother we will have up, and the name of the presentation that he's going to present to us today is True Islam, Jewel of Secret Societies. And without further ado, I bring up my brother and my comrade and all these men, Brother Sharif Anael Bey.
Islam. 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 Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Praise Allah. Bear with me just a second. First, I want to rise, give praise to Allah, the Almighty, Eternal, and Incomprehensible, yet closer to all of us than our jugular vein. I want to give honors to his prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the last prophet in these days and times. Love made manifest so that man can comprehend. I want to give honors to the Moorish Science Temple of America. I want to give honors to the Nation of Islam. I want to give honors to all leaders and members of both organizations. I want to give honors to man, because when man honors man, and when we say man, we mean humanity. When man honors man, he honors his Father God, Allah. I thank you. I want to thank you for your patience. You know, it's been a trying day, but you know what? Now it's a party. This is like family, you know. I want to give a little background about myself. My first and second grade, I attended the University of Islam in Mosque 27, Los Angeles, California, during the presence of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I have a real love for the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Thank you. Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, it was through that organization that I, too, learned about Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America. The brother mentioned earlier about Islam and how Islam is looked at here in the United States, especially in the very, very trying and turbulent times today with regard to Islam. And even in the Islamic community at large, there's, our organizations and the members get the side eye. Like, well, you know, that's not Islam, that's black Islam. Oh, well, that's not really Islam they practice in the Moorish Science Temple of America. It's like the Prophet did all right, right? But when you ask people, what is Islam? Oh, well, you get all kinds of different answers, even from the so-called orthodoxy. But what's interesting is that the answers you get are not the core, it's not the faith. When you ask them, what is Islam, they start talking about culture. They're not talking about Islam. They're talking about culture. They're talking about the clothing in which Islam came to them, right? Well, Surah 49 verse 13 tells us what? In the Holy Quran of Mecca. Surely we have made the old man from a single male and female into what? Nations and tribes, that you may know one another and not despise the other. So what does that tell the wide awake man and woman now today? It tells us that yes, we may all be one in faith under Islam, but not one in cultural experience. So when you tell me to be a Muslim or to be a Muslim, right, I have to take on a Muslim name. Wow. And I got to take on a foreign garb and a foreign culture. What are you really telling me? You're really telling me that I'm not worthy to be a part of a nation, a tribe, which means I'm not worthy to be called what? Human, because Allah himself mandated that all of his children belong to what? Nations and tribes. So that's a very thinly veiled manner of dehumanizing us still. So if Islam is universal, and all Muslims say it is, if Islam See, I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. That's all right. If Islam is for the world, but the world is divided and the people of the world are divided into nations and tribes and they express differently, that means that Islam, the pure faith, has to be cultureless so that every culture can express it their own way. So Islam in Arabia looks what? Islam in China looks what? In China, Islam is the third largest religion. Third largest religion. I don't think any of our brothers and sisters from the Middle East or the so-called Middle East are going over there telling them they need Muslim names. What you think? That's not happening. So Islam in China looks Chinese. Islam in India looks Indian. What does Islam in America look like? We're looking at it right now. Give yourselves a hand. We're looking at it right now. So, this gets me right into my topic. Islam is not a practice. It's not an expression. No more than your clothes define the person, or the clothes define you. It's a transmitting utility. It's a way to express something. That's what the culture is. That's what the expression is. And so our practice of Islam must, I'm definitely getting ahead of myself now. Our practice of Islam must reflect our unique experiences, not just as Asiatic men and women, but as Asiatic men and women in America with the American experience. That makes us different than everybody else on the planet, including our brothers on the other side of the Atlantic and the Pacific. So the title that we chose, pun intended, True Islam. Now see, some of my family have to explain that. About 7 years ago, the brother and I, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, AKA True Islam, had a conversation, and the conversation was about the current, or at that time, a prevalent trend of members of the conscious community bashing Islam, but more specifically, bashing our Islam, right? For whatever reason. But they're bashing our Islam. And so the brother said to me, brother, there's going to come a day where that's not going to happen anymore. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. There's going to come a day where once upon a time, you couldn't talk crazy about the prophet. Let's be real. You couldn't talk crazy about the messenger at all. And see, what has happened is that people believe that Allah's arm got short and that justice has been delayed. That's what they believe. It's all right. You know, they believe they had some time, but you know. So what they're seeing now, and especially with this, with the trend now, as the brother said, that trend is being diminished. It's falling. And the strong angels that guard all four gates to the paradise that we call Islam are standing up. They're standing up. See, Islam is strong. They just didn't know it. Once upon a time, like I said, you couldn't talk crazy. You know, you would end up being the message. You know? That's what happened. So, praise Allah, you know, the brother and I connected again, and we kind of mutually decided that, you know what, it's time, it's that time. It's really that time to start standing up and showing our people what this thing really, really is. And what we mean our people is our people in general, and being a little more active and less passive. You know, and more so, owning our Islam. Not as where's my brother at? My brother Ace Suadil. Not, you know, the brother will make sure you are demonstrating. If you don't have your fez on, he's gonna let you know. If you are not upright and looking the part, he's going to let you know. But then there's a lot of us, that we fell asleep on that. So, we're Muslims or we're Muslims when we go to the mosque and when we go to the temple. Then after that, we kind of blend in. Right? Nah, those days are over. And again, I'm speaking to myself because I'm guilty of that. So I'm speaking to myself as well. It's time to stand up. It's time for this whole thing to stand up. I want to give honors to some distinguished people that we have in the room. Distinguished. We were talking before about the current, I'm just going to call it what it is, malicious spirit in the conscious community that fuels a lot of the debate culture. Debating is good, steel sharpens steel, but done properly with intelligence and with the first principle, which is love, right? We have a couple brothers here that decided, when you look around, you see a lot of empty chairs. It's all good though. Most of the people in the conscious community in New York would rather see a bloodbath. When we were advertising this thing, do you know how many times I had to correct people? They said, oh, was it a debate? They see my picture and they saw the brother Wesley Muhammad's picture. Was this a debate? No, it's not a debate. They were like, oh. Now me, I'm thinking, oh, they're happy. The brother told the lady, he said, nah. Nah, they wanted to see blood. They wanted to see a fist fight. Nah, that's anti-Islamic. That's anti-Islamic. And we see how bad and how poor our condition is with our people, including in the conscious community. Within the conscious community, what do they need more than anything? They need some love and some unity, right? They need some Islam, right? So it doesn't matter. The point man in any operation, it's always been one or a small group. Always. So the people that are here today is exactly who should be here today. I feel like this is family, so I feel like I can kind of, matter of fact, I'm a little high right now. I'm about to loosen up. We're going to get started. I want to give honors to the brother Shaka Atmos. Everybody give him a hand. Our brother represents the community, the West Nile, or the Nile Valley community. Yes, sir. Kemet to some, Egypt to a lot of us. I want to give honors to another brother here that represents Islam from the Ahmadiyya community, Brother Bashir. And I want to give honors to another distinguished guest who has been a very, very strong patron of the Moorish community in New York. But not just New York, but he spreads the message literally all over the world and has an incredible following all over the world. How many of you all like hip-hop? I'm a hip-hop baby. We can clap, Yeah. So the brother that literally was instrumental in taking this hip-hop thing from around the way to around the world, the founder of Zulu Nation, Africa Bambaataa. Yes, sir. Also, before we jump into this, I want to give honors to my other two brothers that helped a lot with the promotion. They were very, very helpful, very instrumental in making this thing happen. This is my first time, our first time ever as Ali's men, putting on an event like this. And these brothers had their boots on the ground from day one. And, we call them the Wonder Twins, right? But they're known as Red Pill and Blue Pill, Brother Phil and Brother Paul Moreland. Yeah. All right, let's get into this whole thing. True Islam, the jewel of the secret societies. Now, as soon as we hear this term secret societies, we start getting, you know, people. We start getting spooky, like, oh no, that's the Illuminati. That's the devil worshippers. That's that crazy stuff, right? Prophet Noble Drew Ali was quoted. It's reported that he said, I took the cover off all of the secret organizations. I gotta move around. I took the cover off all the secret societies, the secret organizations of the world. What does that mean? what is the real purpose of secret orderism? What's the purpose of a secret? See, a lot of times when we hear secret, because our people have been rendered so powerless for so long, we have we have a tendency to escalate conflict. I deal with this whole thing. I deal with conflict resolution, as a profession. So people that feel powerless are constantly looking to gain more power. And they're very wary of people they feel may be bigger and stronger, more knowledgeable, more powerful than them. So when they feel that way, they feel like, oh, well, that brother's bigger than me, stronger than me. He's keeping something from me. So we start to think of a secret as a negative thing, as a bad thing. Right? When my son was 4 years old, I told him not to play near the light socket or the electric socket. He asked me why. Now, do you think I was going to sit him down and pull out a chalkboard and draw up a schematic on the wiring of the house? And no, I'm going to say do it because I said so. If not, then there's going to be some problems. But of course, we know it's for his own good. Did I keep a secret? I kept a secret. If you wanted to play with matches, do I explain why don't play with matches? Because of the science of combustion and oxidation is going to cause this to happen, and a chemical reaction is going to burn the house down? I say no. What am I doing? Am I keeping a secret? Yes, I am. But see, again, our people relate the word secret to something negative so much that we tend to forget what a real secret is. A secret, a true secret. A true secret is a mechanism by which we can safeguard something valuable until one has shown the proper qualifications and responsibility to accept and use it. That's what a secret is. In the conscious community, we have this problem even more so because we feel like, hey, I'm conscious, I got to know everything now. You got to give it to me. Hence, we have people, well, where did Noble Drew Ali get this from? Where did he get the Holy Crown Memorial Science of America from? Are we going to deal with that? Where did he get all these things from, right? Why do you want to know? Whose business is it? That may sound harsh. That may sound harsh, but why do you want to know? What makes you qualified to know? Are you sure you want to know? What are you going to do with it? Now, if we think you're going to do something irresponsible, reckless, that may endanger the livelihood, because it is that serious, of those of us that live the life, then why would we impart such a thing to something so foolish? It's just that simple. Now, the purpose of secret orderism is to keep the secret. And what do we mean by keep the secret? Keep it away from people? No. Preserve, protect, and propagate the secret. A secret is like this, people. A true secret. How many of you, in the middle of the wintertime, sub-zero weather, would turn the heat up, full blast in your house, turn all the lights on, and then open the doors and the windows? All right, you better watch it. They outnumber us here today, brother. But who would do such a thing? See, we laugh because we understand that. You don't want to let what out? What do you not want to let out? You want to let what out? Why? What is the benefit of keeping the doors closed and the windows closed in this case? What happens if you keep them all open, if you open it up? Who benefits? Who benefits, brother? No one. No one. You have just now squandered something precious. Does that make sense? So, what is the purpose of a lot of this secret knowledge? What is the purpose of our supreme wisdom? Right? We know. Problem 13. After learning mathematics, which is what? That's a deep secret, by the way. We're going to get into that. After learning mathematics, which is Islam, and Islam is mathematics. Let's stop right there. Did you hear anything about culture? Did you hear anything about a particular language that you must speak? Okay. After learning mathematics, which is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, it stands true, you can prove it in no limit of time. Now you must learn to do what? Stand on the corner and quote it to everybody you see so they can say, wow, he's deep. Well, that brother's got some science. He's deep. Is that the purpose? So you could do what? Use it and gain wealth for yourself while you are living. That is money, good homes, friendships in all walks of life. In other words, it is not valuable unless you live it. Unless you live it. In Freemasonry, they'll ask the question, how do I know you to be one in this, what is it, brother? By the sign, pass, token of the pass, and the what? The perfect points of my entrance. Meaning, watch what I do. Watch what I do. Watch my actions. In the street back in the day, we used to say, what? Understanding is the best part, right? Because when you see it, you don't got to ask the question. That which is understood need not be explained. So, the real purpose of secret orderism is to protect, preserve, and propagate the authentic tradition. And I'm gonna talk about, well, first let me say this. My objective, when I say it's true Islam, the jewel of the secret societies, it is my objective with this short presentation to demonstrate completely that our Islam, and the structures by which that Islam is conveyed, the organizations, the specific and peculiar organizations, right, carry every hallmark, carry every badge, and carry every indicator of authentic secret orderism. Hopefully that doesn't spook you out. Of authentic secret orderism. Why is that important or significant? Secret orderism in a lot of these organizations, right, are peopled by who? Poor people? Powerless people? Or very powerful people? We know. The people that rule the world, or at least want to, are all members of these organizations. What is taught in these organizations is what they live by. Why are they called secret? Besides the fact that they just don't tell you. They're called secret for a particular reason. Before coming to the Moorish Science Symbol of America, a little background on myself, I was involved in a number of esoteric and secret organizations. And I was very astute. One of the reasons why I'm in the Moorish Science Symbol of America now, and I love the organization so much, is because every single thing that I learned and found in these other organizations, not only did I find them in that little pamphlet that everybody has so much negative things to say about, but I found it in the simplest of languages. And I felt real funny for paying all the money and going through all the things I went through to gain this knowledge. At one point, years ago, I was being scouted by a particular Masonic jurisdiction. They sent their investigative team to my home. saw my book collection and went nuts. They said, you shouldn't have this book, you shouldn't have that book, you shouldn't have the other book. But I loved the craft so much that I stood there and defended and like bombed all of them. It was like 4 guys, just ran through them. I knew their craft better than them. But one of the old brothers was sitting off in the corner smiling. And you know what he said to me? He said, brother, you know your craft is pretty good, especially for not being one of us. He goes, but you know what? All you got is a bag of tools and you don't know the use. Look where you live. What are you doing with yourself? You just have a bunch of books and a whole bunch of words in your head. You're not a master builder. You're not one of us. You just play one on TV. The Moorish Science Temple of America allowed me to understand and learn the use of my working tools. The Nation of Islam led me in a direct path so that I could recognize truth when I saw it. That's the fact. Back to secret orders. Every single real and traditional and authentic secret order has a few key principles. They have a system by which you go from point A to point B. This system is called the authentic tradition. In various cultures, in various times, in various climes, it's called different things. In the Hebrew, it's called what? Who knows? Kabbalah. That's one of the names. Kabbalah does not mean letters and numbers. Kabbalah means the tradition. That's what it means. But all over, they recognize the term authentic tradition to be talking about that thing. What is the authentic tradition? The authentic tradition is this, people. The authentic tradition is, and I'm speaking from the perspective of secret orderism, the authentic tradition is the means by which man can unite with God in fact, not just in principle. This is the authentic tradition, plain and simple. How man, while he lives or she lives, can unite with God. What does it say on the cover of the Holy Quran or the Moorish Science Temple of America? To redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity, what? Back to the highest plane of life with his Father God Allah. This is the objective. But because we've been so far removed from what true Islam or true religion is, it automatically sounds spooky. Even to many of us in the Moorish Science Temple of America, oh yeah, unite with God, be one with God, okay, cool. It becomes cliche. It's not real. Well, the people that run the world know it's real, and not just real, but attainable within a single lifetime. See, the authentic tradition holds that this transformation can happen in a single lifetime, although most of the time it does not. It can happen in a single lifetime. The greatest initiation, what we call infinite wisdom. All right, we ready? It is my intention to initiate every single person in this room without performing. That's my intention. The greatest initiation. What is initiation, first of all? Initiation is something that changes you. Something that changes you permanently. The whole idea of you can't unring the bell. Once you know, you know. In the streets back in the day, when we heard the term man is God, that did something to you, didn't it? What? Man is, what? That did something to you. That changed you. Listen, that changed you. You couldn't go back. You could no longer say, oh, the devil made me do it. I wasn't responsible. You could no longer do that. You would change. That's an initiation. When you that our history didn't start with slavery. That's an initiation. Because here in 2013 to this day, with all of our consciousness, that happens right here every week, you can go to any public school and ask school or grade level students about their history, and they can't take you past slavery. I've done it, my brother's done it, many of us here already have. So, an initiation is something that permanently changes you. Whether it's reading a book, hearing some words from somebody, watching something on the television, that is initiation, plain and simple. When you're changed, you're changed. All right. What is the greatest initiation? The greatest initiation overall is the unity between God and man in a very real sense. We say that finite minds cannot comprehend things what? Infinite. But did it say the man or mind cannot comprehend things infinite? No, it said finite minds can't comprehend things infinite. You guys ready? All right. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We just messed you up right from there. Why? Another very famous secret order is a brother by the name of Carlos Suarez, in his book, Cyclical Genesis, talks about this very thing in his interpretation of Genesis. Follow me, people, please. The story in the Hebrew is to be read two ways, or in Aramaic, is read two ways. One for the initiated, one for the uninitiated. So when you see the very first word in Genesis, which says Bereshit, it is translated to the uninitiated as what? In the beginning. That's the uninitiated. The word to the initiated itself, listen close, is a sequence of subtle energetic interplay. It is a mathematical formula. But when we say mathematical to the initiated, they see numbers as living intelligences. Sounds like chapter 11 to me. They see numbers as living intelligences. Pythagoras, when he learned in Egypt, said the phrase, God forever geometrizes. We'll explain that later. So, the word Bereshit starts with the Aramaic letter Bet. Bet is, in the initiated circles, implies a container. What is a container? It's a limitation. Would you say a limitation is infinite or finite? Now you see why when we say the words in the beginning, we're already messed up. You have now been locked into finite thinking. So in other words, if no finite mind can comprehend things infinite, what's the first thing we have to do? Raise our thoughts to what? Infinite wisdom. We have to change our thinking. Right? What is the first sentence in the first chapter of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America? Let's see. Time never was when man was not. Let's say it again. I want everybody to repeat it with me. Ready? Time never was when man was not. Let that bounce around in your head for a second. See, for you to be able to say that and think about that, that means what? Man isn't this. And more so, man is what? Cosmic. He's beyond time and space. That means what? We really don't know ourselves, right? That's what it means. If time never was when man was not, then we start talking about, okay, let's go further, right? I'm paraphrasing. Time never was when man was not. So what happened to us? How did we come to be as we are? Now we start describing a process by which man came to be where he is today. Right? We start talking about how oneness begins to differentiate. Differentiation, the first differentiation is what? Duality. And then so on and so on and so on until we have full, coarse, dense, three-dimensional manifestation. That's a paraphrasing of the first part of chapter 1 of the Holy Quran of the More Science to Live America. But here's where we mess up. Think about this, people. After we said time never was when man was not, then we start talking about this progression. What just happened to our minds? It went back linear again. Linear thinking is finite thinking. We've just lost the initiation. So, if time never was when man was not, does time matter in this? Is it a sequence of things happening, then the other, then the other, then the other, then the other? No. Thank you. All manifestation is illusion. Why? Because it's bound up by time. Man himself is outside of time. We'll let that sit for a while because that's a tough one. It's tough for all of us because we have to learn to live it. This is what Jesus meant. Oh, I'm talking about that guy, that mythical guy, right? This is what Jesus meant when he said, if you believe in what I'm telling you, you will never taste death. We'll get back to that. How does the authentic tradition operate in our world? This is important. The authentic tradition, and again, I'm speaking from the perspective of secret orderism. The authentic tradition is cosmic and timeless. The authentic tradition is macrocosmic and microcosmic. I'm speaking as a member of one of these organizations. I want to keep repeating that because throughout this whole presentation, you will hear striking similarities to what we teach every Friday, every Sunday in the open. This is what's meant by the prophet said, I took the cover off all the secret organizations. The authentic tradition is cosmic and timeless, meaning that, as Carlos Suarez, for instance, and Michael Berdio, for instance, all high-ranking members in these organizations, they describe it as a continuum of ideas that are cosmic and at the same time so deeply embedded in our psyche that they make up the archetypes, they make up the patterns by which control humanity. But here's where it's deep, people. The cosmic out there, the macrocosmic and the microcosmic are one and the same. One and the same. So periodically, how the idea there we go. How the idea affects humanity is that periodically this tradition impinges upon the manifest world by inserting itself into real-time history. Brother, this one's for you, not just you, but a lot of us. When we hear about and we learn the powerful truth about the previous 16 world crucified saviors prior to the man they called Jesus of 2,000 years ago. When we hear about that, we say they plagiarized. Again, this is initiation, people. They plagiarized. You say, oh, they plagiarized the story of Jesus. He's not real. That's a fake story because there were 16 prior. Right? We've all heard that. I heard it too. But, here we go. We learned in grade school to be able to recognize patterns, right? To recognize a pattern. And we're given certain examples by which we can learn to recognize the pattern. So, what's important? The example or the pattern? The pattern. But is the pattern something tangible? The pattern is never tangible. But the pattern does what? The pattern emerges through activity. The pattern emerges through manifestation. So guess what that says about the man Jesus 2,000 years ago? The mere fact that he was following directly in line with a pattern that extended into unfathomable antiquity means that he was in possession of what? The authentic tradition. The authentic tradition has no beginning or ending. It's continuous and cyclical and not linear. So if it's cyclical, what does that mean? What goes around, comes around. And if we understand the pattern, what can we do? Who made Holy Quran a Bible? How long ago? And can you tell us why Islam renews her history every 25,000 years? For us, we measure time how? By cycle ages. One and the same. One and the same. What are we describing here? To anybody in secret orderism, we are describing something that they're so intimately familiar with that they would automatically see you as one of them. Because if you understand that, that means you know how to drive the car. You know, because if you know that history is cyclical, if you understand the pattern and how it impinges upon humanity, all you have to do is do what? If you want real things to happen in real time, imitate the pattern. Imitate the pattern. Right? What did Jesus do 2,000 years ago? Imitated Asa. He understood the pattern. He knew the cause and the effect of the action. So what did he do? Inserted himself inside the pattern and did what? Caused predictable, real-time events to happen. What do we call this? Writing history in advance. The reason these lessons have not been known is because the Muslims of India, Egypt, and Palestine had these secrets and kept them back from the outside world. And when the time appointed by Allah, they loosened the keys and freed these secrets. And for the first time in ages, have these secrets been delivered into the hands of the Muslims of America. The particular secrets: one, the relationship between God and man. Two, the scientific means by which oneness of the two may be acquired. Let me say that again. The scientific means by which oneness of the two may be acquired. It's a method. It's nothing haphazard, and it's not spooky. The revealing of said scientific means implies a preserved foreknowledge of the same. This stuff, you can't even call it old because it's beyond time. It's older than the what? Sun, moon, and stars. That's right. The presence of this scientific means also implies the presence of graduates and preservers of the same. It is this august body of men and women that quite simply, we ready? Represent the presence of God within His own creation. This means is called by many names, but it is understood to be the authentic tradition. Sound familiar to all of us, pretty much? This is what is kept secret. In ancient times, as we have it recorded in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Symbol of America, there were various locations This is interesting to know. How many of you have heard of Gurdjieff? Gurdjieff is an Islamic mystic from Pakistan. He actually learned and gained initiation, or a high initiation, by traveling to certain ancient locales.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Those are 5 locations given in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Heliopolis and Saqqara, both of those where? In our book, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Jesus and his first cousin went to those first 2. Jesus attended Heliopolis. John attended Saqqara. So what does that mean? They were members and immersed in the authentic tradition. Then we have Acropolis, which is where? Europe. Orissa, India. Persepolis, Persia. So the characteristics of these individuals, they are in the know about, this is very important. These individuals are in the know about the authentic tradition from prehistoric time. They are interactive with the authentic tradition to the extent that separating the persons from the tradition is difficult. You know that whole fake it till you make it thing you were talking about, bro? This is fake it till you make it times 50,000. My martial arts instructor said it this way: do a thing 100 times, it becomes difficult. Do a thing 1,000 times, it becomes easy. Do it 1,000 times, 1,000 times, it is no longer you doing the thing, but the thing doing itself through you. And only then can you say something that is done well. That's what that means. The tradition is timeless and intangible. But because it is archetypal, it is capable of impinging upon mundane reality. It is through mythos that enables archetypes to set real events into motion. This is the power of mythos. This is the power of the legend of Osar and Osset. It is a timeless pattern, but it is couched in real history of the people of that time. So it does what? It speaks to their soul. Let's fast forward. Let me say the word Yeshua. I'm looking at everybody's face. Now let me say the word Jesus. Wow, you feel the vibration come right off the whole audience. Even though we know there's no J in the Aramaic languages. Even though we know that, well, maybe they didn't call him that. Why did the prophet say Jesus? Because the vibration of that word affects us to our soul. Because of our what? Our American experience. We got children, brother. We got children, brother. You understand? So we don't haggle over that whole thing. Well, they didn't call him Jesus, they called him da-da-da. No. What is the purpose of all this? To raise our people. Are they going to respond to Isa? Are they going to respond to Yeshua? Or are they going to respond to Jesus? Let's just be real. Of course, we can teach them the truth, but what are we going to use to reach them? All right. They are intertwined with the tradition and its mythos and legend, thus taking on its power to impinge upon reality. So much so that the mythos itself is in control. We say, what, will we eat a lot of bitter in the name of Allah? Who smiles behind our tears? You? Allah does. Allah's the one. That means the one smiles behind our tears. What is that? That's an initiation. That's a transformation. In ancient Kemet, They call it what? Osiris rising. Or Set rising, but he rose as who? Heru, right? Am I correct?
Did Osiris rise as Heru?
Yes, sir.
No, he did not.
Go ahead, brother man. Correct me.
Asaru, or we call Osiris,
Yes, sir.
his whole, the purpose for his ascension was to do what the purpose of his son's reality was, that the son was to become the father. So as it happened in the first time,
Yes.
it had to happen with Asaru or Osiris becoming Ray, becoming one with his.
Yeah.
So when he rose, you would have to say that he rose as Ray.
Thank you, brother. Give the brother a hand. Thank you. Yes, sir. That's beautiful. What did he do? He just again described the cosmic pattern, the means by which we can concretize the ideal, or what? Spiritualize matter, where man and God are one. Thank you. Yes, sir. Humility? No, brother. You my man. Listen, I want to say this real quick. Oh, yes, sir. I want to say this real quick, brother. Thank you, brother. We're all family. I could slip. I could make a mistake. But we say that the original man, if Allah, if the seed that's in the heart of man is Allah, and we all carry it, that means our enlightened collective consciousness is the presence of Allah himself. I can't mess up as long as y'all are here. The only way I can mess up is if I separate myself and debase myself by separating myself from my brother or my sister. That's the only way that can happen. And that's why we're in hell today. Right? Last one. They are organized informally on a worldwide basis, communicating in ancient time through cold, allegorical dramas and secret orders. Again, the purpose, repositories to preserve and protect the authentic tradition. Also, institutions of higher learning to advance humanity. Third, research and exploration. You just saw an example of that right now. But how can a group of men or women represent God on earth? Isn't that polytheism? Brother, I ain't trying to take no thunder from you, brother. How can we claim to be Muslims and believe this? Let's look at this. I learned about this term from my brother, True Islam, divine pluralism within monotheism. The Christian Trinity and the Islamic monotheism conflict resolved. Uh-oh. What is the basic issue between the average Christian and the average Muslim on this issue? The Christian believes in the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost. The Muslim says, oh, no. God is only one, God's not three. What are we back to now, people? Mathematics, right? Let's look at this. See, if I say one is three, if I say the Trinity, God the Trinity, a part of me, look at the part of me. This part of me says, I can get with that. This part of me says, 1 doesn't equal 3, never did. So now we're at variance. The intellect, right, and the intuition clash. It causes a conflict, keeps us stagnant. But what kind of thinking causes that? Identity property of addition states that the sum of 0 and any number or variable is the number or variable itself. Or 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. In this case, 1 can never be 3 intellectually. That is indicative of linear or finite thinking causes the intellect and the intuition to clash. This is the issue we look at between the average Muslim and the average Christian. Why? I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Because A lot of our Christian brothers and sisters, trust me, they hold the authentic tradition as well. They just don't know. They just don't know. We have to go get those brothers too and those sisters too. So, where do they mess up? Here we go. And I'm speaking again as a member of these inner orders, or former member of these inner orders. Where they mess up or err is in confusing the term God the Son with the physical man Jesus of 2,000 years ago. That's where they mess up. Divine plurality, here we go. Now we change our thinking. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost are differentiations within the unity of God, not outside, within the unity of God. So now we use another mathematical way to think. The identity property of multiplication states that the product of one and any number or variable that is that number or variable itself. Or 1 times 1 times 1 equals what? This is indicative of true Islamic thought, which is what? Oneness, which is what? Infinite wisdom. Satisfies both the intellect and the intuition. John 3:16, everybody knows this, we grew up, don't front, you know it. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on him shall not perish, but have what? Everlasting life. So we're going to get further into this little conflict. Surah 112, 1 through 4, what does it say? Say, he, Allah, is one, he begets not, nor is he begotten, and there's none like him. Wait a minute, hold on now. Well, which one is true? Remember what I said, where the issue becomes? Not understanding infinite wisdom, not comprehending the cosmic ideal that we call God the Son. The source of the conflict lies in the confusion of a macrocosmic aspect of the one true reality, God the Son, and its most recognized personal manifestation, the physical man Jesus. Is this in the Bible? Sure is. Look at Romans 1st chapter. Romans 1st chapter, up to the 3rd and the 4th verse, where Paul says, I, Paul, apostle of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, called in the defense of the gospel concerning our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who was, I sound like a Christian minister right now, right? Who was born the seed of David according to the flesh. That's what it says. Born the seed of David according to the flesh. Who out of his two parents, according to the Bible, came from the seed of David? Joseph did. But declared to be the Son of God according to the Spirit after the resurrection. Sounds like an initiation to me. So, there is a difference between God the Son and the physical man Jesus. This is important to know. We all know that surah. One of my favorite in the entire Quran of Mecca. Behold, my Lord said to the angels, I will create what? We can say it. I will create Khalifa in the earth. What does Khalifa mean? Successor. Who said that? Yes, sir. I will create Khalifa in the earth. In other words, successor. This is powerful. They said, the angels, will thou place therein one who will cause mischief and shedding of blood. While we do celebrate thy praise and glorify thy name. He said, I know what you know not. The biblical term, only begotten son, and the Quranic term, I'm jumping ahead of myself, Khalifa, are identical. They are identical. The term, the English term begotten, is a euphemism for the idea of the cosmic mystery. A mystery is not a mystery to everybody. How do you put, here's the mystery, how do you put something that cannot be contained in a container. Think on that. How do you put the ineffable, the almighty, eternal, incomprehensible in your heart? That's the mystery. The authentic tradition maintains that Surah 2, verse 30, and John 3:16 are describing the same event. What is that event? That event is the eternal and the timeless and the cosmic being placed within his own creation. And this is what distinguishes us, the Islam we have, from the rest of the general so-called orthodoxy. They deal with the Hellenistic, I learned that from my brother too. They deal with the Hellenistic side of it that is totally what? Spooky. Totally what? Impersonal. They teach you that God is not to be found in the heart. He is so far away from manifest creation that east is from west. This is what is taught as Islam. Interesting. We say different. The terms the world and the earth. In John 3:16, for God so loved the world. In Surah 2, Khalifa in the earth, are indicative of that which is created, or what? Manifest reality. The terms God and Allah within the context are indicative of the timeless, causeless cause that is beyond all manifestation, hence beyond all comprehension. Why? Because comprehension is a function of the soul, and the soul is a manifest, therefore it has a beginning and it has an end. Now, yes, we are saying you cannot comprehend Allah. We're saying that. But we're not saying that you cannot experience Allah. Let me explain that mathematically. Everybody, show of hands, do you believe that numbers are the universal language? I do. 100%. Numbers are the universal language. Anybody in here, can any one of you tell me what the number 5 means? I'll wait. Can you verbalize number 5? See, the brother right there, know what he did? Here's the deep part. You want to know what a real secret is? Did he say anything? Could he say anything? See, the real secrets cannot be imparted because it's impossible to impart them. It's impossible. Every single person in this room immediately and intrinsically understands the number 5, but you can't verbalize it. Think on that. Try to think on that. Does that make sense? You guys with me? Is everybody with me? All right. So, the terms God and Allah within the context are indicative of the timeless, causeless cause that is beyond all manifestation, hence beyond all comprehension, but it can be experienced and must be experienced for it to be real. The terms only begotten Son and Khalifa refer to God Allah's presence within his own creation. This is the mystery. That's the mystery. That mystery is wrapped up in one particular biblical word that we call what? Emmanuel. Allah in man. God is with us. With who? Where did this knowledge come out in the open first? Where? North America. To what people? This is Islam, people. The miraculous means by which this insertion and assertion takes place is referred to in the Bible as what? Uh-oh, that spooky thing. The Holy Ghost. See, I'm speaking from the perspective of someone in one of those orders. Let me say it again. We just described the Trinity. We just described the triune Allah. The almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible, macrocosmic, outside of any manifestation. His presence within manifestation, which is the jewel of creation, which is what? man himself. The third thing is the means by which this takes place and continues. That is what is referred to as the Holy Ghost in the Bible and the Baraka in Islam, the blessing, and constitutes the authentic tradition. The what? The line that unites divinity and matter. So, we say, what is the everlasting gospel? What is the everlasting gospel to us? It is a saving power that comes from Allah. Hold on, let's back up. That comes from who? Allah. How? Through his fathers, by his prophet. To the secret order man. That makes perfect sense. To him, everlasting means eternal, cosmic, timeless, outside of manifest creation, yet impinges upon manifest reality in a phenomenological way, meaning in real time. Allah, the cause is caused beyond differentiation, creation, and manifestation, beyond comprehension. Ancient fathers, we're not just talking about our general ancient forefathers that wore fezzes and turbans. Which ancient fathers in particular? The keepers and the preservers of the authentic tradition throughout human history. That's what we're talking about. His prophet, the means by which the cosmic plan impinged upon the reality of the fallen Asiatic sons and daughters in North America. Each prophet can be seen as a spoke. You have a wheel, a big wheel, and you have a little wheel. That little wheel is the matrix. That big wheel is Zion from the movie. And the guys that jack in are prophets. They're looked at as spokes from the big wheel to the little wheel, operating what's biblically called what? Jacob's ladder. God the one, God the three, and God the seven. The central core of the authentic tradition. I like that picture, by the way. That picture, once again, was inspired by my brother. In some of his research, he communicated that, interestingly, that the anthropomorphic God, this is pre-Hellenistic, pre-Greek idealized, okay? Prior to the influence of the Greeks. The idea of God was always anthropomorphic. What do we mean by anthropomorphic? Personal. Personal. Right? That the body of this God was luminous. Brother, when you said that on the radio show, me and the brother got goosebumps. That body was luminous. It was so bright that only, and this is deep, only a black container could contain that body. Only a black container could contain that body. This is powerful. We're going to get back to that. Oh, it gets better, brother man. It gets better. It gets better. God the Father, Allah the Almighty, eternal and incomprehensible. God the Son, Allah in man, the presence of God on earth. Whoa, let's go back to that Bible. When we say God the Son, we think of who? Jesus. But wait a minute. If we count actual chronological years, there was 4,000 years from Genesis to his birth. What, God is a trickster? He's not going to give everybody the Savior and let everybody just die and go crazy until 4,000 years later? God the Son, the Christian man maintains that God the Son was with the Father in the beginning. So what does that tell you? Especially now that you're initiated, you know. God the Son was one of those three attributes of wisdom, will, and love. As a matter of fact, which one was he? Love. You see? So, God the Son is a cosmic, timeless differentiation of the one. It exists inside the one. The presence of God on earth. Let's go back to this Bible. How many of you are familiar with the story of the Good Samaritan in the Bible? The traveler was traveling, got waylaid by a group of men, left broken, left injured, near death, and naked, stripped. That's important. 3 people saw him. First one sees him. Keeps it moving. Second one sees him. Keeps it moving. The third one, the Good Samaritan, does what? Picks him up, puts him on his beast of burden, takes him to the inn, gives the innkeeper money or finance to take care of it, and for medicine. In the authentic tradition, in the secret orderism, from the Bible, that poison book, or the Bible, what do we do with poison? We turn it into medicine. But we have to be able to work in it. We have to be able to perform that alchemical change, right? Because that's where our people are, right? That's where we got to go get them, right? Okay, so, in the authentic tradition, in secret orderism, those 2 men are identified in the Bible. Does anybody know who those 2 men are in the Bible? The first 2 that passed him by? No, sir. You know who those first 2 men are in the Bible? How many of you are familiar with the Bible? All right. These are those first 2 men. The Good Samaritan, we refer to as who? The third one. Jesus, right? Okay. This is part of the pattern. This is not necessarily meant to be actual history. It's telling the pattern, right? The first 2 in the Bible, the first one was, guess who? Enoch. What's Enoch's history in the Old Testament? Did he physically die? Did he physically taste death? No, sir. But do you know the means and the method by which he conquered death? Yeah, but they don't tell you how. He kept that behind the veil, right? Okay. Who's the second one? Elijah. Went up on the fiery chariot. Didn't taste death. This is what's taught in secret orders. In the Bible, when Jesus gave up the ghost, what was the first thing that happened, he says in the book of Matthew? In the temple. The veil was ripped from top to bottom. Now, in the temple, that veil separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies, and only the priesthood could go in. Only the initiated could go in. Only though that august body of men who kept the knowledge of God's secret could go in. So what does that mean symbolically when that veil was ripped from top to bottom? That means he took the cover of all the secret organizations, right? We're going to get back to that one too, because we know who Jesus is too, right? All right. God, the Holy Spirit, holy breath, that which unites divinity and matter, the act of spiritualizing matter. The 7 Elohim, the architects of the matrix of manifestation. Who likes the movie The Matrix, the trilogy? I'm a fan. How many of you like the character Seraph? Right? He had to fight him first, and then what did he do? Took him through the back doors. The architects of the matrix of manifestation, the gatekeepers of the realms of experience. In the Quran, man is said to be made below the angels. But in Surah 2, all of creation, including the angels, are made to bow to the man. I thought creation only bowed to Allah. This is Islamism, the old-time religion. To borrow my brother's phrase again, the religion of the transcendentally anthropomorphic God man. Perfected man. Not perfect man. See, children are perfect, but they have no experience. You see? Perfected man means that he doesn't do the things that he used to do. And he has returned back to that state of innocent perfection of the baby. But with the knowledge. Now we start talking about the specifics, the actual method. Now we start talking about that. In one of the orders that I used to belong to, their motto is this: the method of science the aim of religion. Sounds like us. The method of science, the aim of religion. What does that imply? It implies that the unmanifest realms, the non-material realms, can be scientifically analyzed, explored, and experienced. Scientifically, we could use the scientific method. Symbols, the working tools of spiritual exploration. We say that what? Signs and symbols are for the what mind? The conscious mind. In other words, we don't get spooked out over symbols like the conscious community. When they see that pyramid with that eye over it, all of a sudden it's Illuminati. Do you know where that thinking came from? That kind of thinking came from the Inquisition. Meaning, if this sister gave me some herbal tea, they burn her at the stake. Any knowledge, true knowledge, was looked down upon and was persecuted virulently. Understand? What people made pyramids? What kind of people made pyramids? Us? Why are we scared of them? On the back of a dollar bill, why are we scared of them? What about that eye? What about that eye of Horus? Why are we scared of that? That all-seeing eye. We better. We better love it. What is the symbol? Chapter 5 of the Holy Quran of Sign Symbol Narrative. These tools remind me of the tools we handle in the workshop of the mind. When things are made of thought and where we build up the character. But that's an interesting sight. Jesus was called the carpenter, right? Right? When Prince Ravana saw him, how'd he catch him? He caught him up a 12-step ladder with a compass and a square and an axe. Who builds homes with compasses and an axe? Who does that? See, that should get us to think a little bit, right? We would look at a carpenter strange if he was on a 12-step ladder with a compass, square, and an axe. We're like, what you doing? You ain't building nothing. Not with a compass, and not with an axe. So that should get us to thinking. Well, what type of edifices are being built? He tells you where things are made of thought. Remember, now we go back to the archetypal world, the inner, timeless, cosmic world that exists out there simultaneously in here. Simultaneously. Why? Because what is the crown of God's creation in creation? We are. Who is God's successor? We are. But successor, the term successor, we use only for two reasons. One, because man has fallen. Man is God, but he's not being God. Allah and man are one, but what did he do? Tore himself away from Allah and debased himself. What's the other reason we use the word successor? Because in our limited thinking, it's very difficult to impossible for most of us to think cyclically, so we think one came after the other. When time never was, when man was not. Man and Allah have always been one. Allah is waiting on us to figure it out. What is a symbol? A mental and psychic machine. Let me pause for a second. You guys don't have to believe any of this. It doesn't matter. You know why? Because the people that run the world do believe it, and they run the world. So it will still affect you anyway. You don't gotta believe it. But if you want to uplift fallen humanity, you better know it. They're also the shadow of a thought form, or what's called an egregore. In secret orderism, an egregore is a thought form. Listen close to this, people. How many of you all have seen all of these stories about, in the Catholic churches, about the statues crying tears of blood and all these other weird, interesting things that happen? Oh, they happen. They happen. An egregore is a thought form. Meaning, if you place your mind and your attention and your focus on a particular thing long enough, and enough people do it long enough, the thought it approaches a critical mass to where it begins to be able to act. This is real. It begins to be able to act independently. Do you understand what I'm saying here? You don't gotta believe in the European long stringy haired Jesus. So many other people do that they make it real. That's the power of this. They make it real. They make it real. How many of you are familiar with some of the anomalies regarding subatomic particles? It seems like I'm all over the place. I'm not. How, when they would do experiments, they'd be like, okay, we're going to see if this particle travels this way. We hypothesize that it's going to travel this way. And guess what the particle does? Travels exactly the way they said it was. So, okay, these other guys did the exact same experiment under the exact same conditions, but hypothesized the particle is going to go like this. And guess what the particle did? Just like this. What did they figure out? That they themselves and their thought process affected it even at the subatomic level. That means the thoughts that you have today will, let me say it again, the thoughts that you are having today will manifest physically, maybe not tomorrow, maybe 20,000 years from now, but they will. Actual fact. The people that run the world understand this. Why do you think the media is so powerful? Another definition of a symbol, the three-dimensional reflection of higher dimensional activity. There's so much more I could say on that. I'm not, because I'm going to go over time. There's so much. What we're looking at with a symbol, we are looking at a shadow of something that's happening on higher realms. We can prove it right now. When you see this color, what do you think? What's the first word that comes to your mind? One word, quick. Stop. Right? Yeah, people go, oh, yeah. In other words, this speaks a language, but not to your regular conscious mind. It speaks a language to something deeper inside. Something that you're not really aware of most of the time, but still affects you in your day-to-day life. That's powerful right there. That's power. That's the power of a symbol. It exists. It's a mechanism that you can manipulate or that can be used to affect your higher bodies, your sense body, which is part of the soul. Your imagination or active imagination, which is part of the spirit. And those are the causes that bring about effect in the real world. Oh, thank you, brother. There we go. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now. Uh-oh, now he's talking that Masonic stuff. I knew that the more sign symbol of America came from Freemasonry. I knew it. Yeah, we all did, brother man. Yeah, we all did. Symbols. The Moorish compass and square. I didn't say Freemasonic. By the way, all the things that we've been talking about, are they strange to supreme wisdom? No. Are they strange to the teachings of the prophet in Moorish literature? No. So what would we call it? Would we call it Kabbalah? Would we call it alchemy? Would we call it occultism? We call it Islam. That's what we call it. This is Islam. But it was the Islam brought to us. It's our expression. They can hide it if they want. The secret's out. You can't unring the bell. We use the square to do what? Hold on, pause. These are images. That's not a physical square, and that's not a physical compass. Never was. Am I correct, Brother Daniel Bey? Never was. We use the square to measure all our lines, to straighten out the crooked places of the way and make the corners of our conduct square. What are we talking about? Morality. What are we talking about? Our physical actions. So what are we dealing with? What body are we dealing with? The dense physical one. Right, brother? In the lodge, we know, just by looking at the altar, what degree you opened up on, right? We know, if you see the points of that compass below the square, that's first degree, entered apprentice. That means what? You got both feet in the grave of matter still. Both feet in the grave of gross matter of the lower self. If you see one of those points elevated over the square, that's the FC degree, that's fellow craft. That means you're making some progress. When you see both elevated over the square, that means you have truly subdued your passions. That means you truly now have done what? Been divested of all metals. What does that mean? Jesus said it in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, chapter 11, one of my favorite chapters, where he told Barata Arabo, what did he say? Let us do what? Divest ourselves of our metals. Let us do what? Forget the flesh and go with mind into the land of fleshless things. That's what he said. That's what you're looking at. What's that G? We know, G is for geometry. But remember, Pythagoras saw numbers as living entities. The brother put me on to in one of his essays on the mathematical reality of God, right? That there's a direct correlation between number and atomic and subatomic particles. Numbers are things. Our thoughts are things. God forever geometrizes. So if he forever geometrizes, what does it mean? It means John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. In other words, God placed himself within creation. That means he does what? It says forever geometrizes. He's forever present inside creation. Always was. Because time never was when man was not. The circle 7, the result of successful work of the previous symbols. What kind of design is drawn by a compass? Look at the breaks in the circle. They're at what angles? Right angles. Look at that 7. What's the 7th letter? This symbol, again, remember, symbols, what are they? They're mechanisms that we see and use in 3 dimensions to influence things on higher dimensions or to give us indicators of things that are happening on the higher realms. Happening. So one of the definitions, or one of the things being communicated by this symbol, archetypal perfected man. In other words, the presence of God within his creation. Divinity within matter, the mystery of that which cannot be contained, within a progressively evolving containment. The secret tradition in Kabbalah is this. Let's explain it. If you read the text in Genesis about the story of Cain and Abel, according to the Aramaic tradition, Cain never killed Abel. He didn't kill Abel. The phrase is used or is translated directly from the Aramaic as Adama drank his blood. And if we look at the mathematical equation that is the word Abel and the mathematical equation that is the word Cain, we find Cain is a manifestation of that number 7, that seed that came forth from the heart of Allah that cannot be contained. But in manifestation, you need what? It needs what? An environment that it can do what? Grow and develop and be nurtured to perfection. That is the circle. That is the body. Understand? So, the story of Cain and Abel is the exact same pattern of the story of Adam and Eve in the garden. Mathematically. Same thing. Adam and Eve being kicked out of the garden is the same as Cain being exiled and protected at the same time. Cain represents the unfolding of that seed. When he comes in contact with Abel, Abel mathematically represents a container or a generation of successive containers. When he comes into contact with Abel, Abel ceases to exist. He outgrows the container, just like the seed soon outgrows the pot, and you have to get another pot for the seed. Let me get a time. Thank you, brother. Brother, 15 minutes. Praise the Lord. I'm going to speed through this. There's so much. Brother, you were right. You were right. All right. It also represents the mystery of deific life, the containment, the mystery of deific life, the containment made solvent, the death of the ego, the alchemic phrase that we get from the emerald tablet, solve et coagula, translated from the Latin, which means what? To solve that which is fixed. So that the rays of light or the breath of Allah may germinate the seed buried within the grave of the ego. All right, I'm going to skip through this. There's a couple things I want to touch on. Numbers and letters are working tools to map the inner and higher realms of experience, to scientifically investigate unseen realities, the hidden causes behind manifest reality. So these are other symbols, letters and numbers. All of this, I have an upcoming book that'll be out within a month. It's called Portable Illumination. That's where this lecture is coming from. So I can speed through this stuff. Okay. The use of letters and numbers to find hidden truths and hidden meanings. Manifest realities right there. Who saw the movie Inception? You guys know what that is, right? The movie Inception, where you go into people's dreams, and then there's different levels of consciousness, right? Some of my students, it's this. So you have what is mundane reality here, and then you have the underlying causes that make this happen. Well, what if you can investigate and manipulate the underlying causes? How do we determine and identify the underlying causes? Through letters and numbers. Believe it or not. The pattern is the continuum. So, numbers are universal language. Numbers are symbols of primordial thought forms, and thus are living things. Numbers measure vibration, thus they define differentiation and manifestation. Numbers map patterns. Patterns are the evidence and the shadow of the unseen reality. This is what Kabbalah and all these other things are. There's a particular Kabbalistic pattern that came about in 1914, but it wasn't cracked until the 80s. And we call it for short NAEQ6. Certain people in certain secret orders know exactly what this is. So of course I'm like, let me investigate. Let me do some spiritual investigation. Who do we say in the Moorish Science Temple of America Noble Drew Ali is? We say also he's Jesus come again. We say he's Jesus come again. Everybody says, oh, y'all spooked out. Oh, y'all are crazy. But we understand that man is not the body and the soul, man, spirit, and part of Allah, which means what? Man himself is a part of the continuum. Right? That being said, let's look at it. The name Drew Ali in that particular Kabbalah breaks down to the number 72. The idea is not to play some funny games with numbers. The number itself is the pattern. So if you find another word or phrase that's equal to that number, then the phrase or words on either side we can expect to find similar patterns. So the word vine pops up. What is said about vine in the Bible? What do we know about the vine? John 15, chapter 1st verse. I am the vine and my Father is the what? The husbandman. Who said that? Jesus. We have identified the Jesus in the Bible already with what? A personification of the continuum of God on earth. Also, by definition, this links to the phrase 72. So I took it a step further. There's further exploration. So I took the word 72 and ran it through the esoteric computer. And what pops up is, or this phrase 72-fold lion, which has the numerical value of 231, or white tincture. What is the white tincture? The alchemical philosopher's stone. What does that mean? It's a symbol of perfected man. Does that make sense to all of us in the Monotheism of America? Does that equate or directly relate on the first hit to who we know Drew Ali to be? But here's the beauty of it. You didn't have to learn Kabbalah. You didn't have to pay thousands of dollars and go through a whole bunch of other things. You read it in the simplest of language, in the open. Guess what else popped up? And then I'm going to close with this because there's a lot of time. That word Randolph. I told you would like this, brother. Randolph? What does that got to do with Drew Ali? That man right there. Now remember, are we saying that Drew Ali is a reincarnation of this man? No, we're not saying that. We're saying that because the words, the names, have the same numerical value, that we could find similar or identical patterns in each of these people's lives. Thus we can do what? Predict things in advance. We can do what? Follow the trail. And in many cases, intervene on future events. What I'm talking about is done routine, people. This is nothing spooky. People do this. Details about Pascal Beverly Randolph, P.D. Randolph. Asiatic brother born where? Right here in New York City, 5 Points area, downtown Manhattan. Traveled widely, studied where? Egypt, Europe, and the Middle East. Starting to sound familiar? Quietly yet officially recognizes the conduit of transmission of the deepest secrets of the Western esoteric revival within secret orderism. Let me stop right there. For anybody that says that Noble Drew Ali got his stuff from Helena Blavatsky and all these other Europeans. Let's say he did. He didn't, but let's say he did. If you could research that far, you could also take it one step further and find out that Helena Blavatsky copied every single thing she taught from this man right here. Somebody who looks just like you. That's right. That's right. Actual fact. Now here's what's deep. He was simultaneously involved in fringe politics, organized Asiatics during the Civil War for the fight for citizenship, organized and taught at schools for Asiatics, recognized as the first public Rosicrucian in America by his peers. Yes, sir. Taught Madame Blavatsky, who later duplicated his entire organization, structure, and motto. Actual fact. Keynote speaker at a national convention of Asiatic leaders in 1864 in Syracuse, New York. Yes, he did. Now, this is from his book, The Ansaritic Mystery. Darwin and his abettors are mistaken. The immortal soul of man is not, never was developed from any stage of monkeyhood, and libel God Almighty who affirms it. This is a literal quote, people. This is a literal quote. I didn't add or take away anything. The eternal spark within us, and which never dashes except when the loving female brings to her feet the loving man in the mutual infiltration of soul and the sex and death of both, was created by Allah, God himself, billions of ages ago in the foretime, and finds its human body only when the passion opens the mystic door for it to enter the man, through him the woman, through her the world, through them the spaces, and through it again, Allah God, not as a drop of infinite ocean of mind, but as a being in the heavenly hierarchies. What follows? Why, that he should never forget his fealty to woman, but remember who and what she really is, the gem of God's own auroral crown. Sounds like somebody we know. Oh, we know that guy too, don't we? Some people call him the most wickedest man alive when he was alive. See, there's opposing forces to this august body that want to advance humanity. That's on earth too. This is what he had to say about it in his book, Magic Without Tears. What I'm out to complain of is what I seriously believe to be an organized conspiracy of the Black Lodges, to prevent people from thinking. To prevent people from thinking. What did our prophet tell us? If I can get you to do what? If I can get you to think, you can do what? Save yourself. Now let's see what else Mr. Crowley had to say in his book called Book 4. We should found society upon a cast of what? Men of earth. Sons of the soil. The worst thing they could do is what is done in America. To disenchant the man of earth with his destiny. To fill him with the facts and fancies that enthrall, etoliated, and degenerated idealists and unfit him for his evident purpose, that of supplying society with supermen. That's what Crowley had to say. You think they don't know all about you? Here we go. Black, according to science, means death. And I'm going to close on this. White means purity, purity means God, God means rule of the land. That teaching alone has garnered so much negative side eyes at fezzes and turbans, it doesn't make sense. But many of us, as Moorish American Muslims, it's our fault because we have not or cannot explain it in a way that does what? Satisfies the intellect and the intuition. Inshallah, I'm going to attempt to do that right now. What is meant by the word black? Black, according to science, means death. What kind of science? We're going to deal with that. Mathematically speaking, we could say black equals death. Well, see, the prophet did say black according to science means death. But he also said death is no enemy to man. It is a friend who, when the work of life is done, just cuts the cord that binds even both earth that it may sail on through the seas. He also said what? There's a holy ministry in death. So we can superimpose one with the other and say that black is no enemy to man. Black is a friend. There's a holy ministry in what? Black. Real talk. Let's go back to that container, the only container that could keep the God in manifestation. What was the color of that container? Absolutely. Triple darkness. But now this is something else the prophet said to us. Man cannot die. The spirit man is one with Allah, and while Allah lives, man cannot die. So when we say black according to science means death, what are we talking about? What's dying? The relation of the word black to death. First of all, the science. The word science means the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. What science are we talking about here that deals with the terms black and death? We're talking about, oh, absolutely, he said Moorish science. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What are we dealing with? The science of alchemy. Follow close. In alchemy, the alchemical death is called disintegration. Defined as the fermentation of elements in a state of dissolution. The alchemical term for putrefaction, this is the process, is called nigredo and occurs via an extreme heating of the material to be transformed within a containment or flask in the spiritual death of the ego. That is what dies, people. That is what dies. The thing that separates us between Allah and man is that function of humanity that is our foe, the carnal nature. The ego itself is not evil. But when man's will becomes sluggish and goes to sleep, the true self goes to sleep, and we leave the workers in control. That's the ego. Now we begin to identify ourselves by our own experiences. when the experiences are to simply be brought back to the true self. Understand? We begin to think that this is man. Instead of man is in flesh, we begin to think man is flesh. And our prophet taught us it is not in flesh to think or bones to reason. So, the physical body is the flask or the container in which this process happens. The fire is the true will, developed and inflamed by persecution or sacrifice. Man will be fully redeemed and restored by the things he suffers where? On the plane of manifest, on the plane of soul. This process is referred to by the Taoists as practicing to die, and the Sufis' mantra, die before you die. The alchemist Cornelius Agrippa, in his book, he described nigredo or blackness in the alchemical sense, meaning decomposition, by the penetration of the external fire, which is the breath of Allah, we call it. The inner fire is activated, that's the 7 inside the circle, the seed, which is in the heart of man, and the matter starts to putrefy. The body is reduced to its primal matter from which it originally arose. This process is called cooking. This particular process, Brother Wesley, the color is red. That's why when you said that, we were like, oh my goodness. That's the process. The black earth is closed up in a vessel or flask and heated. Don Permetti's book from 1758. Putrefaction is so effective that it destroys the old nature and form of the rotting bodies. It transmutes them into a new state of being to give them a totally new fruit. Everything that has life dies. Everything that is dead putrefies and finds a new life. In the alchemical process, nigredo gives rise to, and we're just talking alchemy, gives rise to a state called what? Albedo. The brilliant white light of divinity of man piercing through the development stage of nigredo. It represents man's first recognition of and communication with his own divine nature. In fact, nothing dies except what hinders and obstructs the transformation, which is what? The ego, the carnal nature. Death indeed is transformation, symbolized in astrology as the 8th house, in the tarot deck as the 16th trump, alchemically as the planet Saturn, and the base metal lead in alchemy. And the purpose of alchemy is to transmit or transmute the base to the noble. Let me say that again. The purpose of alchemy is to transmute the base substance into the noble substance. How many of you are familiar with orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements? Let me explain it to everybody. You have an atom of gold. The way the electrons are arranged, the way they attach, create, in their unique way, create a metal-to-metal bond. Basic chemistry. A metal-to-metal bond. You have a perfect octet with the electrons. They're balanced. But when fired on with a powerful electric arc over an extended period of time, the the nucleus begins to spin so fast it goes from perfectly round to like an iris, or like what's called a vesica Pisces, like the iris of a cat's eye. When this happens, the electrons all begin to spin the same direction. When they spin the same direction, the metal-to-metal bonds break apart and it falls apart as a fine white powder. Is it gold? Yes. Is it a metal? No. It is still gold, but it is no longer a metal. Do you know what our brothers in the Nile Valley called this? The word Shemana. What was fed to the Israelites every morning when they were on their sojourn for 40 years? Manna. According to the historiographer Royale, for the real Knights Templar, Lawrence Gardner, in his research, he states that that is the food to deify the Kemetic kings. Isn't it interesting that science has proven that 5% of your brain matter is already orbitally rearranged monoatomic platinum group elements? Already in your brain. Yes, sir. So, the phrase solve et coagula, or solved what is fixed, the fix must be solved, can only occur within the nucleo. Let me say that again. It can only occur within the body that's called what? Or the state that's called what? Or the condition that's called what? Black. This is the holy ministry of death. This describes us as a people perfectly, because once that disintegration has happened, we are broken down to the very last compound, so far that the only people in the history of humanity who have ever been called Negro is us. That Allah breathes on that pliant substance. And what happens? Life springs forth from death. Prima materia is the pliant substance. Verse 38 of chapter 17 of the Holy Crown of Moorish Science of America. A literal return to the original state, or first matter, so that the external fire can penetrate fully and activate the inner fire to bring about the albedo state, which cosmically is the Big Bang of Western physics. Chapter 1 of our Holy Crown of Moorish Science of America, prima materia equates to the ethers of the plane of soul and the dark matter of quantum physics, and Nut. And the inner fire that must be touched by the penetrating external fire is the seed that came forth from the heart of Allah. I got tons more stuff. We're going to have to end it right here. Thank you all very, very much. I greet you all. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.